Welcome to Running the Table, the podcast where we run through everything on the table in the world of sports. Purdue basketball is back in action tonight and took on the Northwestern Wildcats in Mackey Arena, the second matchup between these two teams this season. I want to be here recapping this game and giving you my thoughts on what made this one of the craziest games that I've watched this season. Without further ado, let's run it. So tonight we had Purdue final score 105, Northwestern 96 in overtime. Purdue looking to avenge their first loss of the season, which came earlier this season at Northwestern, while Northwestern comes into West Lafayette looking to complete the season sweep of the Boilermakers and get their first win in Mackey since 2014. And what do we get? An instant classic. So this was the second straight overtime game between these two. It was an absolutely insane game straight from the jump. Some of the top performers in this game, obviously, it's going to be Zach Edey for Purdue. Ends up with 30 points, 11 of 14 from the floor, only 8 of 17 from the free throw line. We'll get into that one more later. But 15 rebounds and 3 assists to go along with. And the second guy up for Purdue, we've got Lance Jones, who is, again, absolutely a huge factor in this game. Gets 26 points, 8 of 14 from the floor, 5 of 7 from 3, and 5 of 6 from the free throw line. Over on Northwestern side, they're led by Boo Buie. I mean, that dude is absolutely insane. Crazy to watch. He likes playing against Purdue, I think. In the first game, I want to say he had around 30, if not over, and he had another 25 in this one. 25 points on 9 of 19 from the floor. So not a great shooting game for him, but out of those 9 shots, 7 of them were from 3. He was 7-11 from beyond the three-point line. Added 5 rebounds and 8 assists along with. The only thing uncharacteristic about that was 4 turnovers for him. Second in command for the Wildcats today was Ty Berry. He ended up with 25 points of his own. So between those two, a casual 50 bomb from Northwestern's backcourt. He had 8 of 14 from the floor. He was also 6 for 9 from 3. 3 for 3 from the free throw line, 5 rebounds, and 3 assists. So those 4 guys really led the way in this obviously very high-scoring game. Overtime obviously helped that one. Some honorable mentions from each team. Braden Smith didn't really shoot the ball all that well, didn't shoot the ball all that much, only had 11 points, but made his presence felt elsewhere with 16 assists, which is a career high for him. Only shot for 3 for 7 from the floor, and 5 for 8 from the free throw line. For an 80% free throw shooter, a couple of weird misses where he actually was visibly upset and didn't really like the feel of those off his hands. And for Northwestern, you got Brooks Barnheiser with 14 points of his own on 6 of 9 shooting, 2 rebounds, 4 assists, and 3 steals. So overall, this was absolutely insane. Northwestern they were right there from the jump. They played hard. They made it really difficult on Edey from the start. They were going with the doubling strategy. I think in the first half, he only had like 6 points, 5 rebounds, something like that. So he really didn't do all that much in the first half, but Purdue scored 47 in the first half anyway on the back of Lance Jones and Fletcher Loyer because they were just knocking down open looks. They hit quite a few threes in the first half. Purdue wasn't shooting fantastically, but those guys really got it done with Edey getting doubled. They had a lot of kickouts. They were able to get some easy drives, extra 1 passes, a couple easy layups off of some of those doubles. For Northwestern, the first half was all Ty Berry for the vast majority of it. He was absolutely lights out for the first probably 10 to 12 minutes of the game. But that's when Boo Buie woke up. He was quiet to start. He wasn't really finding his shots and uncharacteristically had a couple of turnovers early, ended up with 4 on the game, like I said earlier. But that was not going to last. Not with a guy as good and as experienced as Boo Buie. He has been around for quite a while. He has gotten better and better with each season. And he is a menace in the Big Ten this year. So all he needed was to see a shot or two go down, and he was firing on all cylinders. He ends up with 25 points on the game, and 7 of those being threes. He is such a tough player to defend when he gets going, mainly because of the fact that not only does he have a very quick release and can just launch it from anywhere, he made multiple highly contested threes today, but if you defend him too high, he will get past you, and he has a very unorthodox but extremely hard to stop. It's like a push floater. He doesn't really go much of a follow through. It's not very even high arcing. It's quick to get up, so it's hard for shot blockers to get there in time, especially if he's able to get the guard on his back. And he has a feel for that. He knocks that down very, very consistently. overall, some key points for each team. For Purdue, it has to be free throws. It was honestly tough to watch at times. They were 29 for 46 from the free throw line. They left 17 points at the free throw line, 63% on the night. For a team that averages 72% of the season, they're a pretty solid free throw shooting team. Not fantastic. They've got a couple of guys that are, bring their averages down, and you're going to have that on almost every team. But in this game, the main culprits were a couple of those guys. TKR, Trey Kaufman-Renn, he has been known to struggle from the free throw line. I want to say he's high 50s, low 60% from the free throw line on the season. He goes 1 for 5. Braden Smith, which it was much more surprising. He's a near 80% free throw shooter. As I mentioned earlier, goes 5 for 8. And some of those misses were coming down the stretch when Purdue was trying to maintain a pretty close lead there. So those were some costly misses. And most of all, the big one here is Zach Edey, going 8 for 17 from the line, which is very uncharacteristic for him. He works on his free throws a lot because he gets fouled a lot. And in doing so, he not only gets practice outside of games, just that to get to this point, he's done incredible work, but also he gets fouled so much during the game. So he shoots a lot of free throws in game, and hence he shoots 17 in this one. But what was very weird is usually Zach Edey, you'll see him have games like this where he struggles majorly. But usually that doesn't come at home. He's been a very good free throw shooter at home for the most part. So it was a very odd to see him. It didn't look like he was quite comfortable out there. But at the end of the day, he made some key ones down the stretch that were very, very important for Purdue to, stay in the game, tie the game, send it to overtime, and in the end up pulling it out in OT. Another thing for Purdue is transition defense and defending the three-point line. Northwestern, similar to their first matchup at Northwestern earlier on the season, shot the lights out from 3. They were 14 for 27, good for just short of 52% from 3. Some of that was Tyberry and Bubui were going crazy. Yes, but another part of that is Purdue allowed them to stay in rhythm for a lot of the game when they were in certain points in transition. They would lose a guy, they would miscommunicate on a screen, or not know exactly who they were going to get in transition defense. And I want to say Bubui at least had 1 or 2 of his threes that were just wide open in the corner. We just left him alone. You can't leave a guy like that who was shooting that well and playing that well open and make it that easy on them. That made it way too easy for them at times. And Purdue has struggled with defending the three-point line at times. Now, I'm not going to take away from Bubui and Tyberry. Both of those guys played absolutely insane and made some incredibly difficult shots. But Purdue has to make it a bit harder in general if they want to keep teams from shooting these high percentages from 3 against them. And another one, defend to the final whistle in OT. I was surprised watching the last minute or 2 of that game where Purdue was a little bit too content to just run Northwestern off the three-point line, only up 4, 5, 6 points in that overtime period. It allowed Northwestern to continue to make it a game and force Purdue to get the ball in, get fouled, and make free throws in a game where it was clear that Purdue was not really on top of their game from the free throw line. So I was a bit surprised of how lax they were in letting them get wide open layups and not at least trying to make it more difficult. They were able to do it at the end and get a couple of misses, and that's what was able to get them to extend the lead right at the end there. But for a lot of that last minute and a half of overtime, it was far too close because they simply were making it too easy. So they really gotta focus on. Obviously, you don't want to give up your threes. That is exactly what Northwestern was hitting all game. But when you're trying to maintain a lead in overtime, you also don't want to go bucket for bucket when you know they're going to foul and you know that you have to go down the floor and make free throws when that wasn't really their strength this game. For Northwestern, I'd say my biggest key is going to be defend without fouling. I know that I'm going to get flack for this when it comes to being on here talking with general college basketball fans. You see it all over social media, even within the first hour or 2 after the game. But both games against Purdue, Northwestern's bigs have massively struggled against Zach Edey, not only to simply defend him, but to defend him without fouling. In this game, they fouled out 3 of their forwards. Obviously, overtime helped with some of that, but throughout a lot of this game and in the second half, there were probably five or six for Northwestern that had 3 fouls middle of the second half, maybe even earlier than that. They end the game with, if I'm looking at fouls here, 5-3, 4-3-3, 5-5-2 out of pretty much all of the guys on their roster that played significant minutes. They had 31 fouls as a team. That's not sustainable. In a game like this, they shot the ball well enough and disrupted Purdue well enough to steal this game in Mackey. In all reality, they played well enough where I can say that they should have won. When a team like Purdue misses 17 free throws, I don't really care how well you play in the rest of it. You shouldn't really win. Now Purdue found a way. They played well down the stretch. They were able to do just enough to avoid really letting it slip against Northwestern, especially in regulation. But Northwestern has to be better with that. If they want to compete with teams, especially with teams that have a big dominant center. Clearly they've had trouble against Purdue specifically. Maybe it's their defensive style. I don't know exactly what it is, but they nearly had a hook and hold there as well, which was a definitely a debatable call there, whether or not he clamped down on Zach Edey's arm in the first half. But they struggle too much with some of them. It wasn't even fouls on the shot. I mean, with this many fouls, 31 fouls, Edey only shot 17 free throws. If most of these shots were in on him shooting, he probably would have shot 25, 30 on his own. A lot of them were just fighting for position. And obviously, there's something to be said about the way the refs called this game. There were a lot of, some ticky-tack fouls, questionable calls. I'm willing to say on both sides, but sure, there were definitely some more questionable calls in terms of the way that fouls were called against Northwestern. But Purdue's used to this. I'm not going to claim that this is the type of treatment that Purdue gets all the time. I was honestly quite surprised by it, but it's easy to cry foul discrepancy. It's easy to cry ref ball, but you got to cool it when you actually sit down and watch the whole game. Another thing for Northwestern, don't play so live or die by the jump shot. If you watch this game, obviously Northwestern was shooting really well from three. So I understand, hey, if you're shooting well, stick with it. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. And that's what kept him in the game in the first half, especially. But down the stretch, whether it be mid-range jump shots or the three-point line, Northwestern really didn't try to get to the basket all that much, except for, you've got boo-booey floaters. You had Martinelli. They had him go into the post and try to get to that left-hand hook a decent amount. But I think that was a fair amount of the foul discrepancy. Not all of it by any means, but a fair amount of the foul discrepancy is Purdue was much more willing, to get the ball into Zach Edey, and naturally that he's going to draw a lot of fouls and get a lot of free throws. But they also have guys combined through Smith, Lawyer, and Jones who will get out in transition and if they get run off the three-point line, they will go downhill. They will embrace contact, and they will find ways to get to the line themselves. Whereas Northwestern, you had a lot of guys like Brooks Barnheiser, Ty Berry, Boo Booey that are content to be jump shooters a lot, and you saw that a lot this game. So if they want to get to the free throw line more, and if they want to try to get some of those get guys like Edey in foul trouble, or just guys in general on Purdue, they need to try to be a little bit more aggressive to getting to the basket, drawing some of those fouls. There's a reason why Purdue gets to the line so much. They are very good at finding ways to get to the basket and force other teams to, heavily contest them and end up getting fouls. So at the end of the day, it's very easy to cry refs and claim that ref ball decided this game. But if you took the time to watch this game and not just be a box score merchant, you saw why this game ended this way. And that does not take away from the intensity and electricity that coursed through Mackey today. It was an absolutely insane and super fun game to watch. For Purdue, their next matchup, they have arguably one of their most important games this season thus far, at least in the Big Ten. They travel to Wisconsin, currently sitting at number 6 in the country, on Sunday, February 4th. This is going to be one of 2 games that are looking like they're going to decide who wins the Big Ten this year. Wisconsin's still up 1 game on Purdue in the standings, and they travel to Madison here at the beginning of February, and the very last game of Purdue's season on March 10th, Wisconsin comes to Mackey Arena. So those are going to be two crazy fun games to watch. It's going to be super fun to see how Purdue fares on the road against a Wisconsin team that is playing really, really well. But we'll see. But that's all I've got for today. I'm going to be doing a lot more recaps of Purdue basketball games since this is my team after all, and I watch every single game. So as we shift gears into college basketball and go through some changes on the channel, be on the lookout for more Purdue basketball content coming up soon. Like and subscribe for more college basketball content. But until next time, we out.